Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavati Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. 21 to 25, please.
Bahya sparsheshvasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayamashnute yehi samsparshaja bhogaha.
Meditation and self-realization. Now we started, if you recall, on the first day, that there is this set of people who believe living in this world, busying themselves with just acquisition and aiming to enjoy what they acquire, feel this is all there is to living, to life. Acquisition and enjoyment. A vast majority of human beings are engaged in life doing just that. Acquisition and enjoyment. And they could pass through their whole life doing that, believing this is all you need to do in life. Nothing more. Then you have those who have this suspicion, who have this thought, is this all, or is there something more in life? What is it? Why are we born human beings? So the only difference between those who are engaged in the world, acquiring, enjoying, and this set is that interest, that inquiry into knowing what is beyond a regular, routine, mundane existence, which we are going through day after day, all through your life so far. So the difference is that interest, that wanting to know. But both have desires. As we've been talking about this, every human born is born with desires. And you do not have a choice, you have to deal with it. No one is an exception, except a person who has realized the self. And by virtue of the fact that he has eradicated desires and vasanas, you become one with your real identity, your original nature. Until that state, everyone is subject to desires. We all have desires. Sitting here, you're a bundle of desires. Not only people sitting in this classroom, all human beings. So now, as we have seen already, I'm only recapitulating what we had discussed. You have a choice in life. And what is that? You get into the mainstream of life, trying to fulfill your desires. And as you go along fulfilling your desires, you will find more spring up. And then you need to satisfy the new desires, and this is never ending. And like Shankara tells us, look, you can go through this over and over again. You have no idea how many cycles of life you have gone through, sitting here, doing just this, fulfilling desires, bringing up fresh desires, trying to fulfill them. That is all life is about. That is who we call a bhogi. Bhogi is one who's just lost in this world. Then he turns towards this inquiry and becomes a yogi. So what makes a person, why do we give that term yogi, is because he believes this very firmly. It's not a casual interest. It's not just a thought that has come and left. But something in him pushes him. I've got to find out. I've got to find out. This cannot be everything. Though he may be living a normal life that we talk about, there is this thought that is constant in his mind. There's got to be something more in life than just doing what I'm doing. So that sets him in the right direction. And like we said, I know most of you, if not all of you, are here because you have that inquiry. What is it? What is the Bhagavad Gita? Why do we need to study it? See, there are no promises given. It's just said that there is a series of lectures. That's about all. It's not any promise made. If you come here, you will be a happy person. You will be peaceful. No such promises are given. It's just a series of lectures. If you're interested, you come. You're not interested, you don't come. So what brings you here is that spirit of inquiry. Otherwise, you can't be here. There is no other purpose. So when you pursue it sincerely, which we discussed yesterday, there is a scheme of study. We have already suggested there are these 4 books that you should acquaint yourself with. It's not just reading the books, it is studying this literature. And the way to do it is to, first of all, wake up early. The recommended time, of course, is 4 to 6, and I don't know how many of you can manage to do that. But let's say whatever time you wake up, try to advance it by a half hour, 45 minutes. That's possible. And slowly try and move into that slot. Ideally 5 to 6 if you are a working person and you've got a whole day of work. So 5 to 6 should be good. And if you acquaint yourself with this literature every day, or choose to do the e-learning, whichever suits you. Now, in due course, you will come to a state in your own personality where you place the right value for this world and all that this world offers you. See, a lot of things the world offers, but what is the value you place to everything? See, there is wealth, there is name, fame, recognition, family, friends, so many things you're experiencing. What is the value, including your life? Yesterday we talked about it, isn't it? Everyone born knows one day you go. And when you go, you take nothing, except your knowledge or your ignorance, whatever you have chosen to pursue in this lifetime. When we say ignorance, ignorance of the truth. You may be a very intelligent person. You may be a very successful person. But you may be ignorant of the truth, the reality. So that knowledge will stay with you if you choose to pursue the truth. So that is the choice you have. And when one pursues the truth sincerely with the study and reflection, as we have recommended, then you come to the state of mental withdrawal, which is the state of renunciation. So what is this state that we are talking about? You don't have to get away from anything. You don't have to run away from your duties and obligations. You don't have to sit in some ashram somewhere. That doesn't make you a man of renunciation, a person of renunciation. But you could be in the midst of things, fulfilling your duties and obligations, but the difference is the value you place for everything and anything that you're experiencing. The right value. So what are we doing? What do people normally do in life? They place what you could call an exaggerated value for everything. You know, they call it black market value. Overrated. You want to go for a movie. So how much do you pay for a ticket to go for a movie? Anyone? How much do you pay? So you're all movie goers, huh? Okay, never mind. 200, 300, whatever it is. Now that is the value of a movie ticket. But if you say, I must see this movie, first show, first day, first show. So they have a premium for it. I don't know what that is. Whatever that amount is. Imagine if they say, you want to see the first show, you got to pay 10,000 rupees. There are people who will say, okay, it's worth it. Would you put so much value for a movie which you can watch the next week? Or the following month, or whatever? Sometimes there's such a hype about a particular movie. People are longing to see it, and they would pay anything. That exaggerated value. So if a young person in the house says, I want to see it, I want to go, I want to pay this much, the parent would say, why do you want to do that? Go next week. But the young person doesn't understand. I must go there. I must be seen on the first show, first day. I've got to be seen there. That is so important. The parents who are conservative would say, why do you do that? Not necessary. They don't understand. There's a conflict in the house. And that is what they call the generation gap. You don't understand, Dad. You don't understand, Mom. This is so important for me. So there is a value that is given to something which is exaggerated. Now this movie part you may understand, but what you may not understand is this is what we do for everything in life. We place an exaggerated value for everything, and therefore we mislead ourselves into this world. We'll be studying that shortly. He says, you don't understand. These pursuits are wombs of sorrow. You don't understand that. And you court them, not realizing what you are moving towards, simply because you give it the wrong value. That is not its true value. Yes, it is enjoyable. Yes, it gives pleasure. But what would you do to get it? What would you part with to get that? We've got to learn to place the right values. And that is the state of renunciation. So when you get there, you are far more peaceful than where a yogi is. So there is a yogi, there is a sannyasi, and a person who has reached the highest state of perfection is a jnani who gives no value to anything in this world. That's difficult to understand unless you get there. Just as, what value would an adult give to a toy, for a toy? Absolutely no value. Even now as you sit here, say, what is a toy? You say that very easily. But look at your own child. What is the value the child places for the same toy? What is your value for the toy? Why is there a difference? Because you have grown far beyond the toy world. Therefore, you remain calm and collected, equanimous and mature with relation to the toy world. However, as we've already seen, you now have another world, another set of toys. And these mean everything to you. So with this knowledge, you grow to a stature where you can look upon the entire world and all that it can offer with the attitude that an adult has for the toy world. That is where you need to reach. So, he says, in the last verse he says, with steady intellect established in Brahman, the undeluded knower of Brahman neither rejoices on obtaining what is pleasant, nor grieves at obtaining what is unpleasant, because he understands this is part and parcel of the world. I'm not going to identify with the pleasant or unpleasant because I understand everything has a shelf life. The good and the bad, the right and the wrong. Everything stays for a while and passes. And he's able to maintain that objective view towards everything that he faces. 21, please.
Bahya sparsheshvasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham Sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam Bahya sparsheshvasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham Sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam
Unattached to external contacts, one finds the happiness that is in the self. Uniting oneself to Brahman by yoga, one attains eternal bliss. So now he gives us the way to attain that state of perfection. So how do you get there? He says the mind, the human mind, has a weakness. It gets attached to anything and everything. Now, you don't have to be educated. You don't have to be taught. See, the problem is, which we don't understand, no fault of ours. The moment you are born, your senses start functioning. From the baby, from that level to the child that has grown, from being a baby. What happens? The senses start contacting the world. The eyes see, the ears hear, the nose smells, the tongue tastes, the skin touches. These are the things that are going on right from birth. So this is a natural course. It is happening. You're already contacting the world and you get entangled with various things. You start your preferences. Like this, you'll say, oh, my baby likes this, not that. You start that and you encourage it. And soon, very soon after birth, maybe 6 months, 1 year, the mind starts functioning. A newborn baby has no idea who is handling it. It could be anybody. But as the baby grows, it starts recognizing, this is my mother, that's not my mother, this is my father. It starts recognizing. So the mind develops liking. So you like the mother, don't want somebody else. You cry if you hand it down to somebody else. Why? What is that expression? Nothing but attachment of the mind. So it starts that early. And since there is no intellect, not yet, the intellect is still in an embryo stage, still growing. Every human is born with an intellect, but it develops around the age of 8, and by the time a young person reaches the age of 13, 14, the intellect is fully available, fully grown, available. So till that point, it's only the body and mind, fully functioning. You've already got a problem. You've already got likes and dislikes, very strong. Now, how do you tackle that? How do you battle that? And then there is no importance given to the intellect, intellectual development. You may say, but children are sent to schools, they're sent for study. What happens in schools or any educational institution? It is intelligence that is gained when you learn the various subjects that are offered in the world. So you become well informed in one or more subjects, and that is intelligence. But the intellect may not have been developed at all. In fact, in our country, in the same country, at the age of 8, the young child was sent to a Gurukula, away from home. Under the guidance of a guru, they learned all that they needed to learn about life and living. So by the time the child was 21, young person, he was fully equipped with the knowledge of the world and self-development. The intellect was fully developed. With this sort of personality, he got into the world to live his life. Therefore, you had a perfect life. There was a golden era in this country. We had all the wealth of the world in this country. And we were a peaceful lot. We still are, compared to our counterparts in the rest of the world. But by no means prosperous. We've lost that. Because we've lost the knowledge of the higher values of life, which is the Vedanta philosophy, which is what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching us. So the intellect is developed and strengthened by higher values of life. I know you're thinking that somehow I'm trying to push all this to you. That's why I keep quoting people, thinkers around the world who had same ideas. There's a very famous basketball coach, John Wooden, who passed away recently, a basketball coach in America. He said, look, ability, with all your intelligence, you've gained a lot of knowledge in the world, so you become a very able person. You become very capable in this world. You become successful. So he says, ability can take you to the top, no doubt, right to the top. But what will help you stay there is character. You have that? You see it on the screen. He says, ability can take you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there. So how do you build your character? The only way you can build your character is with higher values of life. There is no other way. So the intellect is that equipment that will help you gain values. But intelligence is just the ability to gather information, store it, and recall, exchange it for what you get in the world, wealth. And this is how you can earn a living. You've got intelligence, you've got knowledge, you've got a certificate that says, here's a person who knows engineering, here is a person who knows medicine, here is a person who knows business, or whatever your field is. But with all that, you can only exchange that knowledge for wealth. That's all you can do. But you may not be a better human. You may not be a peaceful human. You may not be able to relate to your own family. All that is not possible unless you have character. And character you get only with values. And it's the same character that will take you all the way to a perfect state. And therefore, he says, this attachment of the mind is deadly. When the mind is strong, intellect is weak, it becomes attached. Here is a person who is unattached to external contacts, and one finds happiness that is in the self. He has learned to find that happiness within himself. Uniting oneself to Brahman, the highest, how? Through yoga, by yoga, one attains eternal bliss. Now, I've already told you this. The word yoga, you've got to understand, is not physical asanas and breathing techniques as we understand generally. Yoga has a broader implication. It means anything one does to get back to his original state is called yoga. Because it's taken from a Sanskrit root which means to join. Yuj means to join. So when you use your physical body to get back to the self, it is karma, karma yoga. When you use your mind to get back to the self, it is bhakti, bhakti yoga. When you use your intellect to get back to the self, it is jnana yoga. So whether you use the karma, bhakti or jnana, you're using these techniques only to get back to the self, then you are performing yoga. He says, uniting oneself to Brahman by yoga, one attains eternal bliss. You reach that pinnacle of human perfection.
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगाः दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगाः दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः.
For the enjoyments that are born of contacts are only wombs of sorrow. They have a beginning and an end. O Kaunteya, O Arjuna, the wise one does not rejoice in them. So when he says does not rejoice in them, what he means is he is not dependent on them. It's not that you don't enjoy the world, but if you are dependent upon the world, you'll be miserable. Anybody who is dependent can never be happy because you are identifying with something which can change. You remember the first day we talked about happiness? You'll turn around and say that is first day, how to remember all that you said. Little bit you got to remember. We did say that people do find happiness. They are happy. People are happy. But you got to examine that happiness. If anybody claims to be happy in this classroom, you got to examine what is that happiness you are experiencing. And if you have the patience to examine, you will find this. You will say, I'm happy because. Why? I've got a very good family, wonderful family. So you're happy. Now, your happiness is dependent upon the existence of your family. If you don't have the family, you will be bored. You won't know what to do. The children, there are many families where the children grow up, the parents are miserable, they're depressed. Why? They don't know what to do. Children have gone. So what is it? How long do you want to hold on to the children? Even animals dispense with children. You know, animals, they are very attached to the children, but their offspring. But once they become adults, they find their own ways. They have nothing to do with their own offspring. Even your pet dog in your own house, you will see that. They would have, litter, but once they become adults, they are individuals. They have nothing to do with each other. But a human being alone becomes so attached, so dependent, and miserable when they're not there. How many families, how many parents are miserable when the children leave? And when the daughter leaves home, the mother, the parents, particularly the mother, will never let the daughter live an independent life. Every day phoning. How are you? Are you okay? Why you sent a child to a lion's den or something? But the mother feels that. Every mother feels that the daughter should get a better husband than she did. And mother feels the son will never get a wife like his father did. Every mother feels it. Nobody is going to be as good as me. What will happen? What will happen? It's nothing but attachment. So you don't permit the other person to live an independent life. They leave the house, they go. See, that's why in the good old days, they had this, dowry system. What was the meaning? They are not supposed to see the child again in their lives. Therefore, they give all that is required for her to live her life. That is the significance. Now you give that, and every day that girl is sitting in your house or you're sitting in that house, there's no meaning. And the shopping is permanent shopping. So the man who has to pay the bills, that man has the heart problem. He has the shocks and knocks of life because he is paying the bills for the wife and the daughter and the son-in-law, all of them put together. That is why he's working from morning till night, morning till night, morning till night. Why? He has to put all the bills that are produced. Why does that happen? Nothing but attachment. You're not able to draw the line. You're not able to say no. You cannot, because you're afraid. If I say no, what will happen? They'll all leave me and go. That worry, that anxiety makes you almost, people will extract things from you because of your weakness. Now, that doesn't mean, some of you will say, I knew, very good, I've learned this today. So I go back to my home and I'll tell my wife, don't you dare ask me anything. I am not attached to you. You will not get your food again in your life. So don't come and blame us. Okay? So you must understand the principles. We are only saying this mental bondage. See, what happens is when your mind is attached, you can't think clearly. And if you can't think clearly, you cannot act correctly. And if you don't act rightly, it's going to come back and hit you. You're the one who's going to be affected. So you better gain this clarity. You better not allow your mind to take over your personality. That is why we said, see, the first book you have to read is The Fall of the human intellect. You must know that the intellect has fallen. You have an intellect, but you're not using it. So you've got to learn to use the intellect. That's the first lesson, first book you've got to read. Then you must understand the devastating effect of the mind that is ungoverned, uncontrolled, unpoliced. A whole book to explain that. So once you have prepared your own personality, then you can take on any challenge in the world. See, I'm tempted to share with you, great thinker Rumi says, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. We have that? Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. Persian poet. So if you're clever, you'll try to change the world and waste your time. As Swami Ramtirtha says, it's like straightening a dog's tail. All the effort you put in, straighten it. If you let go, it goes back to exactly where it was. Now that doesn't mean you don't do what you want to do. Please do it. Not with an expectation that things and people will change. This is the need of the hour. Somebody has got to do it. Do it. Knowing fully well it has a beginning, it has an end. It will come back to where it was. So that is not of any permanent value. But if you are wise, if you have understood the right values of life, you will change yourself. And that is permanent. So he says, these enjoyments that people are after are born of contact with the world. When your eyes see something nice, when your ears hear good sounds, nose smells, tongue tastes, skin touches. These are the contact-born enjoyments when you contact the world. And that, he says, are wombs of sorrow, meaning you don't see the sorrow content in them. Now, what do you mean sorrow? There is a law that you cannot change. Nobody can change. And that is the law of diminishing value. Every time you contact an object, it has a diminishing value. The first time you contact, there's tremendous value. But as you keep contacting the same object or even person, that initial joy starts diminishing until it comes to a zero. This is the result of indiscriminate, unintelligent contact. See what happens? A person says, you know who I met? I met an angel. When? Before marriage. What happens after marriage? Now, most of you are quite qualified to say. So what happened once? A lady got up in the middle of the night and found the husband was not there. So she went looking around for him and went down the steps and found him sitting in the pantry, the kitchen, with a cup of coffee, middle of the night, and looking into vacant air, thinking. So she came and said, what happened? Why are you sitting like that? Says, do you remember 20 years ago what happened? She said, what happened? You and me, we were in the park, the wrong time, late hours. Says, yes, I remember. So she quietly sat. She thought, he's being very romantic. So she sat. Yes, I remember we both were there. And your father caught us red-handed. Yes, I remember. And then he put a gun to my head and said, either you marry my daughter or I'll put you in jail for 20 years. Yes, I remember. Today I could have been free. Because it's 20 years back. What happens? All that you claim to have experienced before marriage. What happens after? Same person you're living with. You're seeing the same person over and over again. Unintelligent, indiscriminate attachment leads to a point where you find no pleasure. Then why don't you give up the person? Cannot. Why can't you give up? If the person is not there, you're miserable. The moment she says, I'm going to my mother's house, you're finished. Some of you are sitting here because the wife has gone to the mother's house. You don't know what to do with yourself. So you will have found a place and you've come and sat here. If she goes, you're miserable. But if she's there, there's no pleasure. This is the problem with the diminishing value. You lose the joy. Not because of the person, not because of the objects, but because of your wrong relationship. See, the wise, he says, the wise do not rejoice in them, meaning they do not depend on them. Their happiness is not dependent. A person is there, objects are there for you to enjoy. No animal can enjoy, no plant can enjoy. It's only a human who can enjoy objects and beings, no doubt. But enjoyment is not indulgence, not by indulgence, because you lose the pleasure. He says, enjoyments that are born of contacts are only wombs of sorrow. They have a beginning and end, meaning it's fleeting, it's passing, it lasts for a while, it has a shelf life. You must understand that. The wise do not rejoice in them, do not depend upon these objects or beings for something which is within themselves. Happiness is within yourself, not in the objects, not in the beings. But you have to learn to find that happiness within yourself. Arthur Schopenhauer, a German philosopher, he says, it is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. And all of us are looking for happiness anywhere else except within ourselves. Therefore, we never find it. So, you don't rejoice in them, you're not dependent on the world.
शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं सयुक्तः स सुखी नरः.
So in the previous verse he talked about attachment and the danger of indiscriminate indulgence. You will lose the pleasure. That's what we saw in the previous verse. Now he says the way to contact the world. He says, he who is able to withstand sodom, even here, iha eva, before liberation from the body, the force arising from desire and anger, he is a yogi. He is a happy man. So how should one contact the world? The world is meant for you to contact and enjoy, as we've already seen. No animal can do it. No plant can do it. So it is meant for the world, for human beings. But you got to learn how to contact. See, if you want to sharpen a knife, you know what you need? You need a rough stone, a rough edge to sharpen a knife. Now you can't say, I can afford it. I will have a smooth marble stone. Your knife will never be sharp. It will be blunt. But if you do not know the art of placing the knife on the rough surface, you will make the knife more blunt. It's a technique. It's an art. Sometimes you have these people coming around to sharpen your knives. You sharpen, they call it, they have a little wheel of stone. And they so beautifully place the knife on the stone in such a way, just tip it in such a way that it sharpens it. Because you do not know how to do it. It's a technique, it's an art. Similarly, you got to learn how to apply yourself in this world and sharpen your personality. Otherwise, living in the same world, you destroy yourself. So what is that way? How do you contact? It's an art. How do you contact the world of objects and beings? It's a technique. And you learn it, you become sharpened. Otherwise, you lose what you have. So he says, the ability to withstand kama krodhodbhavam vegam. There is a force that arises because of your own desire. And why he brings in anger here, in fact this is one modification of desire. Desire is the root cause of all your problems. Ungoverned, unpoliced desire. Uncontrolled desire. Not desire per se. So when you let the desire take its own course, it will subject itself to modifications. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, bhaya. These are all the modifications of desire. In fact, you don't have to worry about it. See, what it means is, if your desire is interrupted, there will be anger. Some people say, I don't know why I get angry. I don't know the cause of my anger. You trace it down, there will be some desire that has been interrupted, disturbed. It is impossible that you get angry without interrupting some desire. There is no other reason for anger. This is the only reason. So anybody experiencing any anger, trace it down. It will be some desire that has been interrupted, disturbed. Even you may say, but I am only expecting cleanliness in the house. See, there must be order, there must be cleanliness. And these people come and they disturb everything. You have a desire for cleanliness, maybe a good desire. But if somebody comes and interrupts that, you will be angry. You may want people to be good, and when people are not good, you can get upset. Desire for goodness. Now that is a fantastic expectation. Who are you to desire? Okay, you may have a desire, but it's unreasonable. You can't expect the world to function according to your frame of mind. And then you get upset. This is the life of each one. If you examine, it's not only desire, any negative emotion. Desire, greed, anger, hatred, jealousy, lust, fear. Some people say, I have fear. Why is there fear? Some desire. You're afraid of losing what you already got. See, there is a thinker, Speth James. He says, I used to think that if we threw enough good science, I put it up in the screen because it's a long quote. I used to think that if we threw enough good science at the environmental problems, we could solve them. I was wrong. The main threats to the environment are not biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change. You know, every time you sit and watch the TV, they're talking about how polluted the air is in each city. This is the topic going on everywhere. So the climate change, as I once thought, they are selfishness, greed, and pride of individuals. And for that, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation, something we scientists don't know much about. United States environmental lawyer and advocate. He's saying the problem that is created in the world today, the environment, the pollution, or all that we talk about, it's because of individual selfishness, greed, pride. And what do you need for that? He says, not science, spiritual and cultural transformation. This is in the United States. Until America tells us what to do, we will never do it. So even these ideas have to be imported. The Bhagavad Gita, 5,000 years old. 5,000 years ago, the same ideas were given out which we are trying to study. If only we understand the value of what we have in this country. If India has a place, if Bharat has a place in the map of the world, again, I'm not trying to make you emotional. I'm trying to make you understand the value of what you have here, now, which you're not even looking at. At least examine it. The Bhagavad Gita, the Vedanta philosophy, will help you live a complete life, a whole life, a happy life, a successful life. And the same knowledge will take you all the way to the truth, the reality. Yet we don't help ourselves because we do not know the value of the knowledge. So if you can withstand that force of your own desire and anger, how do you do it? Now you tell me from what we have spoken, how will you be able to hold the force of desire and anger? With what? Nobody? With what? With your hand you will hold the desire. When you get angry, you hold yourself like that. What will you do? With the intellect, with knowledge, with values. See, that is the only, I just showed you. Spiritual values, cultural transformation. After showing you also, you don't understand. Little bit you got to understand. No? When you walk out. See, today I'm taking all my chances because it's the last day. If I told you this first, you wouldn't have come back again. So, you got to understand basic values. Use your intellect. The only way you can develop the intellect is with values. These spiritual values. Because they are what they call sanatana dharma, eternal principles. They do not change with time or age. So what was true the values 5,000 years ago are true now and will continue to be true in the future, applicable in the future. It's not modern generation, they need new values. No. As long as you are a human, you will have the same set of values. Customs may change, lifestyles may change, but values don't change. That is why they refer to as eternal principles. They do not change with time or age. So that is what you got to learn. Never mind the other things. These basic values, if you learn, you will be able to hold that vegam, that force that arises out of your own desire and the modifications of desire. Such a person is a yogi, a happy person.
Yonta sukhontara ramaha tathantar jyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati. Yonta sukhontara ramaha tathantar jyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati.
He who is happy within, who rejoices within, who is illumined within, that yogi alone, becoming Brahman, gains the bliss of Brahman. Now if you see, the trend now is going towards the highest. See, earlier we talked about the yogi, we talked about the sannyasi. Now he's moving towards the highest state, because the assumption is you have understood, you got to move from where you are and become more mature, understand better, get established in higher values, live those values, and then you will qualify to get to the higher state. Example, do you remember that example we gave? Pole vaulting. You use this knowledge to lift yourself up, 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 up to that height short of perfection. That's what is happening right now. So he will all be talking about Brahman, Atman, getting to that point. That's the trend now. So what happens? This is an internal sadhana that he's talking about in the 24th verse. He says, you are anta sukhaha. You're happy within. Anta Rama, rejoicing within, full of energy. See, people believe a philosopher means he must be very quiet, hardly smiling, hardly talking, hardly relating to people. Yet Krishna is a personification of energy and cheer, full of life, a Jagat Guru. He is able to communicate the highest knowledge, rich, full of cheer, full of mischief. Could not control him. That sort of a personality, it's exaggerated to show us what that energy is. Remember the very first day I told you, you got to live 100 years. How? Not in a hospital bed, prolonging your life, but an active life, a dynamic life, a life full of enthusiasm. See, when you wake up in the morning, you got to spring out of bed. Why? You got another day. To achieve what? Be a better human, get to a better state. That's what the day is for. Never mind the challenges. If you don't have that attitude, there are many people, wake up. Waking up is torture. And then to wake up, you will, whoever, if you are the husband, you'll ask the wife. If you are the wife, you'll ask the husband, chai. Can we get some chai? There's no energy. Why? You need chai to wake you up. And then you drag yourself. Where is the newspaper? Arey Baba, who is there? Get me the newspaper. Everything is dragging. And if you talk of exercise, put the pillow and go back to sleep. It's a torture to think of exercise. No study, no exercise. The last time you opened a book was when you had to write an exam for in your college days. After that, you've never seen a book. When we talk about a book to study, you may while away your time reading stuff. People read and read and read. They don't know what they read. Simply gathering information which you can never use. But when you read, it must be something you learn from and you can use in your life. Then you have gained some knowledge. Otherwise, it's information. Information doesn't help. You become like a computer, like an encyclopedia. You just have information, but there's no transformation. You're the same person with the same problem, with the same situation, nothing changes. So, here is a person who has learned that art, whatever, to find that happiness within. Is full of joy, full of cheer, illumined, got the knowledge. That yogi alone, becoming Brahman, gains the bliss of Brahman. So you go all the way to hit the 100th mark. That is when you gain that ultimate truth, the ultimate bliss. Next verse.
Labhante brahma nirvanam vrishaya kshina kalmashaha chinnadvaidhayatatmanah sarvabhutahite rataha labhante brahma nirvanam vrishaya kshina kalmashaha chinnadvaidhayatatmanah sarvabhutahite rataha.
Now, in the 25th verse, he gives a second method, that is internal sadhana in the previous verse. Now he's talking about external sadhana. Sages attain the bliss of Brahman, so it's the same goal, whose sins have been destroyed, whose dualities are destroyed, who are self-controlled, who revel in the welfare of all beings. So he's giving certain conditions. What are the conditions? First of all, he says, Kshina kalmashaha, the sins of vasanas have been destroyed. How do you reduce your vasanas? It is through the path of right action. You act correctly in the world, whatever that is. We are not describing it. A whole chapter, chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, talks about karma yoga. It's a whole chapter. But to put it simply, it is acting in a spirit of service and sacrifice. That should be the quality of all your actions. Then your personal desires slowly get eradicated. You do not create fresh desires. You do that, that is your discipline. Yatatmanaha, whose likes and dislikes, your preferences, the mind is tame, is controlled. It is a discipline of the mind. Bhakti yoga, you could say that, where you purify your personality, your feelings, and move towards the higher. Chinnadvaida, dualities are destroyed. Dualities meaning you are excited when joys come, you're dejected when sorrows come. These are the dualities you face. Pleasure, pain, joy, sorrow, honor, dishonor. But when you have jnana, when you understand these are impermanent, there is something permanent in life, you are developing your intellect, your jnana, your knowledge. So these are the 3 disciplines that are recommended, external sadhana. And then it's not sufficient. How do you know you are on the right path? How do you test yourself? How do you examine and find out you're moving in the right direction? The acid test of your spiritual evolution is Sarvabhuta hite rataha, one who revels in the welfare of all beings. There are no preferences. You are able to rejoice in the welfare of one and all. Not only humans, animals, plants, the rest of creation. If you are able to identify with one and all, then you are moving in the right direction. That is the way to go through internal and external sadhana. And he continues.
Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yata chetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनाम्.
For those who are freed from desire and anger, who are self-controlled, who have subdued the mind completely, who have realized the self, the bliss of Brahman resides in them. So now that you have followed the internal and external sadhanas that have been given, he says, thus freed from kama krodha. See how important it is. The preparation for meditation and self-realization. Once again I can tell you, because the whole world is promoting meditation. The whole world. Two things that are happening in the world, two extremes of spiritual sadhana, yoga and meditation. Both are promoted worldwide in a very big way, because they're the simplest things to communicate. Yoga asana, breathing technique. If I sit here, this hall will not be enough. I just have to start demonstrating. It's not easy. It's not difficult. We do yoga every day in the Vedanta Academy. The students are taught yoga. So it's not that we are not doing. But what can physical asanas do? Anything gross will address itself to the gross aspect of your personality. So you will have a better physical body. But by improving the body, you cannot improve the mind. Why? Because mind is subtler than the body. You could have a beautiful body and a warped mind and no intellect. So just because you have a perfect body doesn't mean you have a perfect mind, you have a perfect intellect. So the body development cannot ensure the development of the mind and intellect. You have to deal with each one separately. That is why we gave the three disciplines. Physical level, what must you do? Mental level, what must you do? Intellectual level, what must you do? If you follow these sadhanas, those who are freed from desire and anger, then you become free from the clutches or the influence of your own desire, your own modifications of desire. Who are self-controlled, yatinam, controlled at the physical and mental level, yatachetasam, the mind subdued, abhitaha, completely subdued. The mind must be completely under your control. Nowhere do you lose yourself. That thought control comes when you are single-pointed. I'll show you a diagram that will explain to you how we are progressing. Otherwise you miss the whole picture. So here he's saying the body is controlled, the discipline. When we say control, the body is disciplined, the mind is disciplined, and the thoughts are disciplined. When your desires are offloaded, you come to a stage where you can concentrate, and then you still go into your sadhanas, you qualify for meditation. The mind completely controlled. They realize the self and then gain the bliss of Brahman that resides in them. Next verse.
Sparshan kritva bahirbahyan चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ.
Continue.
यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः.
So these two verses are taken together, 27 and 28. In the 27th verse he says, shutting out external contacts and fixing the gaze as though between the eyebrows, equalizing the flow of incoming and outgoing breaths in the nostrils, having the senses, mind and intellect controlled with liberation as the goal, the sage free from desire, anger, fear is verily liberated forever. I hope you're seeing the sequence of thought. In the previous verse we said, after all the disciplines, your desires are offloaded. There are the disciplines of the body, mind and intellect. And then you bring yourself to physical control, mental control, thought control. Then you qualify to sit in the seat of meditation, not before that. Otherwise you find people are only promoting yoga and meditation all over the world, not realizing that you need to qualify. When they talk about yoga, they say you can control the mind. That is not possible, because the body is gross, the mind is subtle. And the law is subtle controls gross, gross can never control subtle. See, the walls of this room is gross, matter. It cannot control your mind. Mind is subtle. You could be sitting here. If we lock the doors, your body is caught here, can be held here. But the mind is not held here. Even as you sit, your mind can leave the classroom. Why? Because mind is subtler than this room. The matter here, the walls of the room cannot control your mind. This is the principle we are talking about. So physical development cannot bring about mental development. It's the other way around. If you develop your inner personality, it can control your physical body. That's possible. So here he says, having said that, now he's giving procedural details of getting to the state of meditation. So he's saying, shutting out external contacts, parshan krutva bahirbahyam. When you say shut out external contacts, please remember in the context what we mean. You do not have value for all that the world offers you, or rather, you have the right value. So you are detached. Then you develop chakshuschayvantare bhruvoho. You are gazing between the brows. Some people take it literally and sit like in meditation and try and focus their eyes in between and come out of meditation with a splitting headache, because they're concentrating between the brows. It is only symbolic. It means when your gaze is towards something higher, you are devoted. You've got devotion. See, when you look down, you suspect the fellow. Who is this fellow? Why is he here? You're looking down upon somebody. When you look up, you automatically have that devotion. So you need to be devoted. A sattvic mind that is conducive. Then prana, the pranas, your incoming and outgoing breaths are all equalized, because the breathing relates to mental condition. So if you want to be calm and collected, if the breathing very heavily, you can't be calm. You got to quieten, you got to sit down. Breathing has to be calm. Then you are able, it is conducive for meditation. So you can't say, I'm going for a jog and meditating. You can't do both, because the breathing is heavy. So you got to settle down, you got to sit down, calm yourself down. The breathing has to be equal. It's conducive for meditation. Then he says the more important thing, senses, mind, intellect are controlled with all the disciplines, with liberation. See, your senses are controlled for what? You want to become very fit for what? So that others can admire you. No. I want to love everybody so that they love me. It's a worldly goal. He says, all that you're doing to get to the highest. I'm gaining this knowledge not to impress people, but to know the truth. So whatever you do, liberation is your goal. The sage, free from desire, fear, and anger, is verily liberated forever. So I'll put the diagram for you. That will sum up what we have discussed so far. And it will make you understand the role of these disciplines and how it takes you through your spiritual journey till you hit the ultimate perfection. So here, I don't know if you can see it at the back, but I'm just explaining. These are 3 paths here: karma, bhakti, jnana. So if you're not following these 3 paths, you are a bhogi. Bhogi meaning you're interested in the world for 2 things: acquisition, enjoyment, period. Nothing more to life and living. I just want to acquire, earn from morning till night, running from birth to death. You are constantly contacting the world because you want to get more and more. And then having got, what do you want to do? Enjoy. This is it. There's nothing more. So that set of people are called bhogis. But we already saw, if you understand, you've got desires, you've got all these ambitions, all sorts of worldly thoughts, but with one different thought: this cannot be everything. I've got to find out the truth. Then you are here in this periphery of spiritual evolution. But unless you discipline yourself through karma, bhakti, jnana, you can't get started on the journey. So when you sincerely pursue, like I said, today is the last day. It shouldn't be your last day, really. It should be your first day. Of what? Your own self-development. You can set a program. Each one can set a program for himself, herself. You know who you are. You know what your weaknesses are. You know what your strengths are. You should set yourself on this journey to improve yourself. And these 3 disciplines will get you started. So if you continue the disciplines of karma, bhakti, jnana, you come to a state of uparati, mental withdrawal, detachment. Not that you're getting away from the world, but you place the right value for everything. And you still continue, you come to a state of dharana. Dharana means your intellect is able to put the mind in its place where it wants it. Now, for instance, you're here. Can you concentrate for this 1 hour and 15 minutes that we are together? I don't expect it, because it's not easy. But you have to go through all this discipline to come here, to be able to concentrate on what you choose. The intellect is able to guide the mind and keep it in this place. That is concentration. And dhyana is the ability of the same intellect to keep it focused on one thought, single pointed thought. That's why you have a mantra. There is no other thought, is the assumption. But it's not that you chant a mantra and go back to many thoughts. You can't go up to that point and return. Remember, we said, once you reach that, there is no return. You have reached a state of refinement. So, dhyana, you qualify, and then through meditation, you hit the final goal, self-realization. Last verse.
Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvalokamaheeshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shanti mrichhati. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvalokamaheeshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shanti mrichhati.
Having known me, when you see the first person singular me, it is not Krishna, it means the truth, the reality, because that was the identification. Remember, when the river merges into the ocean, there is no river thereafter. There's only a vast sheet of water, the ocean. Similarly, these great masters realized the self. Thereafter, even when they used the first person singular, they meant the truth, the reality. So having known the truth, as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities. Yajna is right action, where you act with service and sacrifice. And tapas is when you conserve your energies and direct it to something higher. That is the only way you can reach the highest. The Supreme Lord of all worlds, which is the self in you, the God principle in you, the same Atman is everywhere as Brahman. Of all worlds means waking, dream, deep sleep, physical, mental, intellectual. So all that you know of is pervaded by the truth. The friend of all beings, meaning there is comfort when you move towards the self, there is discomfort when you move away from the self. Example, anybody remembers? Coil spring. One person is following, thank God. Coil spring. You remember, if you're under stress, you are away from your original state. If you move towards your original state, you're peaceful. That's what he means. Friend means comfort. So you will be comfortable when you move towards the self. You will be uncomfortable when you move away. And if you keep progressing, you attain peace and bliss. With this we conclude. Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama Panchamodhyayaha. We have the humility to believe we have not completed, but from today we shall start our journey and study. With that attitude, we read the first verse of the chapter, please.
Arjuna uvacha sannyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha shamsasi yat shreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishitam.
Thank you very much. If you will be seated, there will be some prasad that we'll be distributing. Thank you.